Welcome back to the nationally syndicated Price of Business Show. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Alex Bro, he is a regular here on the Price of Business, but his real job is with one of my favorite think tanks in the country, which is the American Enterprise Institute, AEI, AEI.org. He has such a tremendous background, formerly a chief economist for the House Ways and Means Committee, and has worked in public policy. And I consider him a thought leader, particularly when it comes to fiscal policy, and always glad to have you on the program. Welcome back, Alex.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Yeah, I love what you guys do. AEI is one of, if not my favorite think tank, it is one of my favorite think tanks. It really does serious research. Its agenda is the truth, which you may not find it, but at least that's what it's pursuing. And it's such a nuanced way of looking at public policy, which is so hard to find. Always love the work there. All right, great topic lined up for us today, which is the student loans, which has gotten an incredibly poor reporting, has had poor reporting all along. And, all poor people getting their student loans taken care of, poor people, and the reality is that there's a whole class, an economic class of people in this country that can't even dream of going to college. I mean, it's so beyond the realm for them. Due to their circumstances, their upbringing, the list is huge. And I know from college people who overcame extraordinary circumstances. That's great for them. That was exceptional for them. But it really, this whole concept, just even the debate, forget about the economics, which is going to be our main focus, but the whole fairness question about forgiving student loans when you look at so many other people out there. And then when you look at the primary beneficiaries demographically, income-wise, this is really scandalous, Alex.
Well, I think it is scandalous what's happening here. They're going to forgive loans for 43 million individuals. About half of them will have their student loans wiped out entirely, about, I think, 20 million. The remainder will get, much of their student loan debt forgiven. And those individuals, as you said, come from all walks of life. And so they can include lawyers and doctors and those with MBAs and other advanced degrees, or others who are just incredibly successful. There is an income cap on the student loan forgiveness, $125,000 per year in income for singles and $250,000 for couples, and that's pretty high. And so a lot of people who either are successful today, or in the case, say, of a young doctor or a young lawyer, will be incredibly successful in the future if they're not already successful today, and they will be enjoying the benefits of this gift, $10,000 maximum in some cases, and up to $20,000 in debt forgiveness if you had a Pell Grant as well.
Yeah, and so it's an incredible story, and the way the media has reported it to me is just outrageous. You've got people making up to 6 digits who are going to have loan forgiveness. I find that just astonishing. Let's talk a little bit about, not a little bit, a lot. Our focus, though, today is on the tax implications of this. Not everybody lives in Texas like I do. I don't have a state income tax, thank God. That isn't by accident, but by choice. That was a big part of deciding to live here. It certainly wasn't aesthetics. Sorry, Texas. Great people, great business environment, not necessarily the prettiest place. But there's people who live in, I think about this loan forgiveness in places like Minnesota. I think about California, New York. Man, this is brutal.
So the tax issues are really interesting. So the first thing to know about the tax issues, I guess I would say, is the good news from the taxpayer's perspective, which is that these gifts, this income, which in fact it's a form of income that you're receiving from the federal government, will not be taxable at the federal level. Now maybe you'll say, well, of course not. This isn't a job that I had. But normally, the normal rule would be that if you have an income tax, that this should be considered income, and that the sort of conventional assumption would be that this would be taxable at the federal level, but it won't be. And the reason it won't be is because lawmakers snuck in a tiny little unnoticed tax provision into a bill last year. The American Rescue Plan had a small tax provision in that big bill that said that any student loan forgiveness would not be taxable. So they changed the rules before Biden went ahead and announced this plan. Now, the next question is, what happens at the state level? Do the states tax this as income? Most states follow that have an income tax. Most states that have an income tax follow the federal government's definition of income, but not all states do. And the states that don't have to make a choice about whether to tax this income. And you might say, well, why would they want to tax this income? Well, they might tax this income, one, because they just don't like the policy, some of the red states, or two, maybe because they need the money, or a little bit of both. Already, we know that 4 states have affirmatively declared that they will be taxing the value of the student loan forgiveness. That's Indiana, Minnesota, Mississippi, and North Carolina. 3 more states may do that, and they haven't decided yet. That's Arkansas, California, and Wisconsin. And there's hundreds of millions of dollars, actually billions of dollars in the case of California, of potential tax revenue that's on the line here.
Okay, so say the ones that had not decided, Wisconsin was one of them. You broke up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Wisconsin, California, and Arkansas. Those are the maybe states, potentially taxable. We're waiting to find out.
Yeah, and by the way, and I'm glad I asked again because it was California I did not hear. But, you know, this situation, I mean, California and Minnesota, they have almost like federal level taxes. I mean, it's not quite as bad, but man, they are like revenue hogs. California, of course, is famous, and it's the worst when it comes to this type of thing. So this has far-reaching implications. It'll be interesting to see, particularly a state like California that prides itself for being so progressive, what they end up doing. What is your gut telling you?
Well, you know, I mean, the politics of it are going to vary state by state. So far, we've seen more red states promising to tax this income than blue states. But some of these states like California, they're desperate for revenue. They love revenue. And for the individual in California, it's going to depend on their income, and it's going to depend on how much student loan debt relief they get. But they could face a tax bill of $1,800 at the max, and it would be very, very easy for someone in California to get a tax bill of $500, $600, or $700 as a result of this.
Yeah, makes perfect and terrifying sense at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and particularly California. I don't know any state that is like, oh, we got too much money, let's send it back. There was that kind of conversation a few years ago, although none that I know of. I guess you can say a tax cut would be the equivalent of that. But right now, I mean, it's a revenue nightmare for most states, particularly the ones that you named off, who either have said they will do it or are considering doing it.
That's right. And so, you know, we're still waiting to hear. Sometimes in some states, they're going to need to pass legislation in order to make a final decision. And you know, as to the fiscal status of the states, it does vary. I mean, remember that the federal government shoveled out the door an enormous amount of aid to the states during COVID, during the pandemic, much more than the states needed. So some states are doing well, at least on a temporary basis. Other states are in more serious condition, and that fact, that those bailout dollars or transfer dollars, however you want to call it, from during the pandemic, have affected state finances as well, and may ultimately affect some of the state decisions about whether to tax this income or not. And I just add that you know, it's not uncommon for this type of a gift or income to be taxed. When one files for unemployment insurance and receives unemployment, that unemployment benefit is taxable income. And so, you know, sort of by a similar logic, if the government is saying, hey, here's $10,000 because you have a student loan, or $20,000 because you have a student loan, that too should be considered income. And then, the difference though is you don't have the cash, you just have a reduced debt obligation. And so when that tax bill comes due, you're going to need to find the money to pay the bill.
All right. With that, again, you're breaking up a little. I think we got most of it. Really a timely topic, though. Really glad we were able to cover it. I want to encourage people to check out Alex Brill and his work over there at AEI, one of my favorite organizations, aei.org. I'm Kevin Price. This is The Price of Business.